Hello and welcome to the agenda on Labour Social. Hope you're doing all right. I'm Graham Hughes and this is Phil Morehouse of A Different Bias. Having a few technical problems today. Sorry about that. But yes, Ryan Brown in the chat. At least the chat's working, Phil. So that's one thing.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, what are we going to talk about first? Are we going to talk about Rwanda or are we going to talk about voting intention?
Well, there's three things really in the news politically this week. There is the Rwanda bill, which actually, if the Tories have got any sense, should actually drop down the agenda now. There's all the polling that basically says, yeah, the Tories are basically knackered now. And then there's the news today that retail figures fell in December. I could have told you that because I keep an eye on the ad revenue. But what it means is, unless, this is what economists are saying, unless people drowned their sorrows last month, it means we will be in technical recession when the data officially comes out, which means then Sunak hasn't dodged those technical recession headlines. And it's going to be a bit of a weird one because on the one hand, we have the technical recession is just 2 quarters in a row where your economy shrunk compared to the previous quarter. It doesn't mean a great deal, really, if you've got a stagnant economy, and you've had a stagnant economy for 15 years. But politically, it's dynamite because there's a difference between recession and not recession as far as headlines are. Labour will be able to go, right, recession. You're in a recession. You've delivered to the recession. Congratulations. And that'll be that. And the Tories are already really up against it. If we tie in the Rwanda bill side of it as well. So the Rwanda bill does them no good. The Rwanda issue does them no good. Polling consistently shows actually Labour are leading on immigration and asylum. Such an arse have they made of it. I pointed out myself on my own channel, Keir Starmer chose to ask questions about asylum, something a Labour leader would never do.
2 weeks in a row?
2 weeks in a row in PMQs. And
amazing.
In PMQs, leader of the opposition, any opposition leader, but certainly the leader of the opposition, is trying, because they're trying to replace the Prime Minister. So they are asking questions on an issue that is a strength for them and a weakness for the Prime Minister. So Keir Starmer has basically said, asylum is a weakness for you, Sunak Niel China, and a strength for us. Now, either that is true, in which case the Tories are mad to keep banging on about it, or Labour are getting this wrong. But is it really credible to suggest that the party that have had a lead in the polls for 2 years and are now leading on every issue that forms up that polling lead?
Do you want me to
are they really likely to be getting it wrong? Probably not.
Do you want me to bring up the chart that's behind you?
You can do, yeah. This
is the chart.
Slightly different. So what this is, it's from some Dylan Difford. I've used this a similar chart myself on my own channel. But what this chart shows, it shows you the voting from 2019 and where it's gone. So if we look at the Conservative column, for example, the Conservative voters from 2019, a big block of them have gone to Labour, a big block of them have gone to Reform UK, some have gone to the Green Party, some have gone to the Liberal Democrats. So, there's various things in there. Some of them are dead. A good chunk of them dead. You can see that way more Conservative voters from 2019 are dead than from any other party, because the Conservatives most heavily chase after the very elderly voters. So inevitably, a higher proportion of their voters, indeed a greater number of their voters, dies. So they have to replenish them with people entering middle age and tending towards being Conservative. But that's not happening. And the problem the Conservatives has is established political strategic wisdom is, if you've got it's natural for the party of government at this point, you'll have some people saying they don't know how they're going to vote. They voted for you last time, but they don't know now. It's because they're not entirely happy with you. That's the white bloc. Those are the Tories' target voters, really. So those are the ones you can win over. Some of them will just naturally still vote for you at the next election. They'll decide that you're the lesser of two evils somehow. But some of them needs to be won over. So you need to target them. Now, a voter that isn't saying don't know, a voter that's actually saying, no, I'm going to vote for these other guys, they're probably lost to you.
Yeah.
They're really hard to win. You know, it's different. If someone's just saying, I'm not sure, that they're winnable. If someone is saying, I am going to vote for someone else now, it's not that you can't win any of them back, but it's way harder. So it's inefficient to chase, to pump in too many resources to chase after them. And the problem with this Rwanda, the whole Rwanda plan, is it's been an effort to chase after those Reform UK voters. And all that's happened during the entire lifetime of the policy is it's helped Reform UK. Because if you think Reform UK had they underwent a little bit of a crisis early on. So the Brexit party died so that they could presumably shred all the financial documents, and they made themselves the Reform UK party instead. And they really didn't know what they were doing. They were farting about all the time. It's like they couldn't jump on the bandwagon with COVID because the people who were sort of leading it weren't anti-vaxxer or anything. So there was no culture war to be had with COVID, and they were scratching around. They really didn't know what was going on until the Conservatives started making this big issue of asylum. And of course, they segued straight into that. So, the rise of Reform UK, you could argue, is a direct consequence of the Conservatives attempting to make culture wars of asylum, something traditionally they've been able to do, but they're just unaware that actually it's dangerous now.
Yeah.
So, what you've got here is a Conservative Party. Only those white blocs are realistic targets for the Conservatives. So all of the other blocs did vote Conservative last time, and you're putting a lot of, if you're trying to chase them, you're putting a lot of effort into getting not many of them are going to flip over. Once someone's decided they're voting for someone else, the vast majority of them are not going to flip back.
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, fair enough. And I wanted to mention about sort of the polling for the Tories. I mean, it's absolutely dire, but there's a big problem with becoming complacent. There was a local election in London, which the Tory
Yeah.
candidate won massively. But
Yeah.
there were a lot of mitigating factors in that. The Tory candidate was a Lib Dem, a popular local Lib Dem who defected to the Tories, and also the Labour candidate was a anti-trans person.
Yes.
So there's a lot of negative campaigning against her, and Labour got their arse handed to them. But it serves as a warning that the complacency is not going to be tolerated by the voters.
Yeah.
Voters who seem a lot more switched on and aware than ever before about the tricks that are played. And I saw today as well. I don't know if you've seen this, Phil, but in the Press Gazette on Twitter, I've put out a tweet saying that the UK has fallen to the last place of the Eldman survey, I think it is, of 28 nations in terms of trust in the media.
Right.
We're in bottom place.
Yeah.
It's gone down from 35 in 2022 to now 31. I guess that's a percentage.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I mean, we sort of know that the media are not remotely trustworthy in this country, but I wonder if it's more a consequence of the. It'd be interesting because there's lots of things it could be. I sometimes wonder, is it really a consequence of the fact that because our media is pushing the Tory narrative, shall we say, that now and they're still trying to do that despite the fact that the Tories are about as popular as a fart in a broken lift. So is it really just that, people see the media at the moment as trying too hard to get people to support the Tories? Because there's lots of things it could be. It'd be too much to hope for that people are just seeing that it's, as bent as a £2 note. I just wonder if it's of its time, just because the Conservatives are really unpopular and the mainstream media is like the PR wing of the Conservative Party.
Well, I'll just put the chart there on the screen. You can see that the number one is China. So obviously you have to trust the media there or you'll go to jail. And Indonesia, Thailand, I mean, these are quite autocratic countries, really. Thailand, you get people thrown in jail for not standing up when they play the national anthem. India, UAE, Kenya. These are not places that I think of as like, press freedom. But this is
Yeah.
about trust in media rather than anything else. Saudi Arabia is right up there. But when you look at sort of more liberal countries like South Africa, Australia, France, Spain, Sweden, even the US, I mean, we still come below them in the chart there. So, yeah, nobody trusts the press for some reason in this country. I wonder why. Can't imagine. And also, we've got a super chat, so thank you very much to Brad W for the £5 super chat. Sunak is digging such a big hole over Rwanda stuff that he can soon send refugees through the hole in the center of the earth. I like that. Thank you very much for the super chat, and you're absolutely right. The thing that you mentioned earlier, Phil, about Prime Minister's questions, the fact that Keir Starmer has questioned the Rwanda policy or rather immigration in general twice in a row over 2 weeks, showing it as a weakness for the Tories.
Yeah.
This week he asked 4 questions about these 4,000.
It was the same question.
Yeah. I was going to say 4 questions. It was the same question 4 times about these 4,000 migrants who have gone missing, and this is going to happen more simply because at the moment, if you come here, the only way to ask for asylum in this country, if you're not from Ukraine or maybe Hong Kong or maybe Afghanistan, you have to set foot on British soil or get into British territorial waters.
I mean, you have to effectively, Afghanistan, even though in the media you would get the impression that we're trying to do that. An awful lot of people in these channel crossings are Afghans.
Yeah.
So we've not actually set up a safe route for Afghans.
No,
we just officially accept that they've got a good reason for fleeing Afghanistan, but we still haven't set up a safe route.
So people are coming here and they used to have to say, I am from XYZ, I am claiming asylum.
Yeah.
Now, if they do that, there's a chance they might be sent to Rwanda, so people aren't doing it. And all this empowers is the people smuggling gangs.
Yeah.
Because that before, so long as you survived the trip across the channel, once you're in the UK, you were technically safe from the people smuggling gangs because you asked for asylum and you had to be looked after by the British state.
Yeah.
That's the rules. Now, people are in a position where if they declare themselves to the British state, they might be sent to Rwanda. So why would you declare yourself to the state? And the people smuggling gangs are like, great, quids in. Any women or children coming over, we will exploit them sexually for money. And there's the authorities don't even know who they are or that they exist in the country. So we're making things more dangerous for asylum seekers. We're helping the gangs.
Empowering slavery.
Yeah, we're empowering slavery through this Rwanda scheme. I mean, it is just the most barbaric thing that this government has done, which is impressive because they've done a lot of barbaric things.
And it's self-destructive. It doesn't help the country. And it's not helping the Conservatives electorally. It's hurting them.
Yeah.
Because they're the situation with Reform UK, they have no answer to it at all. They're not even approaching the situation. They have raised an issue. Like asylum and immigration was not considered a top issue a few years ago, even amongst Conservative voters, not considered a top issue. So it was down there with housing and stuff like that. Important to some people, not one of the top issues. They've now raised it to the point where it is considered the top issue for Conservative voters, but not at all for the general population or Labour voters. So Labour, it's not a wedge issue with Labour. It doesn't work for that purpose. And they seem to be failing on it. And Reform UK have now made themselves, they were scratching around for a cause, for a thing to unite people. And now this is it. The Tories have given it him. And yet the Tories are unable to attack Reform UK over their policies. They're not, the things they'll say about Labour, where are the same attack lines for Reform UK? They're too scared to. They're absolutely terrified of Reform UK. So it's like they're trying to appease not only the far right in their own party, but Reform UK as well. And it's not working. The polls this week are showing another leach of votes from the Tories to Reform UK. Because of this Rwanda bill, because the Tories clearly look divided on the issue. It's obvious they're divided on the issue. So even if you thought it was a top issue and you were generally supportive of the Rwanda plan, how can you seriously believe that the Tories are going to go ahead with it when the Tory MPs are so divided on it?
Yeah. So
From strategically, it was a complete nonsense of a policy. It should have been dropped. Should never have been started. It was started by Boris Johnson. It was one of these things, like the retained EU Law Act, that started under Boris Johnson because he looked like he was losing his grip on power, and he needed the far right to come to his rescue. So that's all these policies were: the Rwanda plan, the retained EU Law Act. It was all stuff that he gave into because his own grip on power was weakening, but it was always ridiculous policies.
Well, I have a question. So, if you are a politically engaged Tory, not someone who just votes them, don't really care, not really paying attention, a politically engaged Tory right now, what is there to vote for with the Tory party? Because it's not the economy. It's not stopping the immigrants.
I mean, obviously, I'm biased. I can only, but I keep trying to think of myself as someone who believes in the free market. And even then, I cannot see, like, the Conservatives are not at the moment the party of the free market. They have shackled the market, and they continue to do so. Like leaving the single market, that was a free market that we're now not part of. But also just the thinking that's gone on beyond it. There's a significant portion of the Conservative Party who held sway for a good many years that want us to actively diverge from the markets we need to sell to. That makes other markets even less free. So we are not part of a free market anymore. Even the UK as a whole is not a single market. But, you know, the more you diverge from other markets, the more red tape there is, the more bureaucracy, the more cost there is, the more difficulty there is in selling to that other market. So you're making trade less free with this thinking. So the Conservatives are not the party of free trade. Like Jacob Rees-Mogg keeps talking about free trade. Oh, we should just have no trade barriers. Everyone should just trade freely, as if the whole world is a single market, but without any regulations. That's what he wants, but it doesn't work. He's crazy. It doesn't work. That was what some Brexiteers thought would happen. We would lead the way. We would do this thing. Yeah. And, you know, and Jacob Rees-Mogg was actually in government a big supporter of just the reason why we kept delaying the standards checks. He never wanted the standards checks. Oh, we'll just trust everything that comes into the country
from China.
We'll just trust it all.
Or Bangladesh.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, we'll just trust it all, and then we'll do so well that the rest of the world will go, oh, we don't need these trade barriers. Yeah, let's just have it like it was 300 years ago.
Do you reckon if someone put polonium in their cocaine, that would change their minds about just trusting stuff that comes from anywhere? You just got to trust the market.
But that was their thinking. Some of them genuinely thought that, because it was baffling. Early on in 2015, 2016, I was genuinely confused why people who really believed in free trade, genuinely believed in free trade on the right, supported Brexit. And that was what it was. I found out that's what it was. They really thought that all of these markets and regulations, and that was the problem, and we would lead the way. They thought we'd be a beacon. Actually, everyone's just taking advantage of us now because they can't believe how stupid we are. We've had Australian news presenters laughing at us.
Yeah. But this is the thing. So the CE mark has become the conformité European. Yeah. It has become the standard of the world. And so if you are a Brazilian importer, you can't import stuff that doesn't have the CE mark on it from China. Brazil's not in the EU. China's not in the EU.
No, exactly. It's because it's much cheaper to do it.
Yeah.
Like different markets have their own standards, obviously. But you manufacture to the highest standard, then you can sell everywhere. Now, if you're only going to produce a product, if let's say a Chinese business was only going to produce a product for specifically the Brazilian market, or maybe, you know, Chile or something like that as well, whatever, then they wouldn't need to. But like, given that they also want to export that product to the EU, it means they need to be able to register for the CE mark anyway to meet those standards. And those standards also work for South America. So of course they, you know, that's what they're doing. Otherwise you're setting up different production lines. It's expensive.
Yeah.
So all of their products will have the CE mark. If they're going to export any of them at all to the EU, they'll run it through the same production line if they can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course they will. I mean, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, the idea that they're going to have a different conveyor belt, different machinery for the British version is just...
Oh, it's absolute madness. I mean, the EU now have legislated so that It's now enforced. Any new product is going to be sold with, what is it, the C-type charger now, the USB charger,
USB-C,
C-type, the good
Yep.
one.
Yeah,
And that's
it's all
going to happen
interchangeable.
here now. In a year or two's time, everything we buy in this country is also going to come with that
was it-
C-type charger, because they're not going to make a separate one just for us.
Was it Mog that was complaining about that?
Yeah,
Was that Mog?
yeah. He
What
complains.
a dickhead.
He is.
We should be given the option of like lots of different chargers for every phone, but
Yeah,
you're not
and
given an option.
manufacturers are going, no, it's just cheaper to do this. If we're going to have to do it for the EU anyway, we're not making a separate product for the UK market. Like, it's bad enough for them that they have to make different plugs, although our plugs are better. But they have to make different plugs.
Whose
That's
plugs are
it.
better? Whose
Mains
plugs are better? Our plugs are better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Unless you're traveling, they're a bit bulky. But as a plug, oh
Yeah.
my god, like I miss them when I travel because I'll plug in my laptop or my phone, thinking that it's going to charge overnight, and I wake up in the morning, it's on 5%, and I'm like, what the hell? And the plug is just hanging out of the
Yeah.
socket, and I'm like, ah. But yes, the exception of South Africa, that has its own plug that no one else in the world uses apart from South Africa,
Really?
which is like our plug but with round pins rather than square pins.
All right.
Yeah, true story. South
Okay.
Africa, what the hell? I think we used to use them as an alternative in the 1950s, I think, a long time ago. I don't know, but we don't anymore. But there's other countries that use the British plug. I think Kuwait does.
Right.
Singapore, Hong Kong.
Anyway, the point is that is pretty much the only extra, and even then you don't have to. Actually, I'm pointing behind you. You can't see it because I've got my V cam on. But I had something arrive that's manufactured in Europe, and it came with the European thing. Fortunately, I have an adapter because I also bought a camcorder in the past that had a European plug, but not a British plug to go with it. So, you can still be sold these things.
Yeah.
And it's annoying. But that's the only difficulty we have. That's the only extra, and that's just like one part of the production line. It needs a different plug for the British market.
Yeah.
The rest of they're not going to do for the rest of it. So
I've got sets of like little. When I was traveling, I had like little chargers with me, and I had these headsets. Headset, is that the word? And they were all connectors, different types of connector for different phones. And it came on a little rubber line, and it had little holes in it to put in each one. And I think I had about 16 with me for like, because Sony made a phone, and Nokia made a phone, and some companies made different phones.
Yeah.
With it's the same company but different chargers for the phones.
Well, I mean, Apple did this. I mean, Apple are right pissed off now because they can't use that, whatever it was called. They're going to have to use C-type now in the EU,
Thunderbolt and Lightning.
Which means we're going to get that as well.
Yeah. Alex says, £5 super chat. Thank you very much. I had an argument with an Australian on who had the better plug. We agreed they are the best too. So the Aussie one, the Aussie one tends to stay in its socket because it's not straight. It's on a slant.
Right.
And they have them in Argentina and other countries as well, but and New Zealand, I think. But British plug does not come out the socket. That's the one thing I really like about it. If it's in, it's in. Plus, you can fix it yourself. You can't do that with an American plug or a European one. You can't open them, fix them, put a new fuse in, and they're safer. Anyway, it's true about South African plugs. I have an adapter at my old hairdryer from there. It's way more powerful than the UK hairdryer. US plugs don't need earth because they are double insulation wiring.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop them, as Graham says, falling out when you just pull on the cord a little bit.
Yeah. And also with the American ones, because their voltage is a lot lower, they can't really have things like toasters. No, they have toasters. They don't have kettles. They don't get kettles in America.
Is that right?
Yeah, they don't have kettles. If you try and buy an electric kettle in America, it's actually incredibly hard. It's not like they have them in every shop like they do in the UK. If you ask an American to boil you some water, generally they'll fill a cup with water and put it in the microwave.
Okay.
And then put it in for 2 minutes in the microwave.
Is that why they don't drink tea?
Steve Retro Loft says kettles are slower in the US. You can get them, but they take absolutely ages to boil the water because they're only at 110 volts instead of 220.
Yeah.
And Yeah, they don't drink tea in America because there's a combination of they don't have kettles and the only tea they really have, because they don't have like PG Tips or Lip, they don't have Tetley or Yorkshire. They only really have Lipton Yellow Label, which is crap. I know you don't drink tea, Phil, but
No, I
like
don't.
it's horrible. It's like bin water. It's just so bad, and it doesn't make a cup strong enough to put milk in. If you put milk in it, it becomes even worse.
Right.
It's like a sad cup of misery, and then you put milk in it, and it just makes it. It's like if you're sad anyway, and then someone came in and poured milk over your head. That's how sad it is. And
Right.
I understand why people don't drink tea.
So
in
the
other countries.
Boston Tea Party, they were doing everyone a favour with it in America then.
Yeah, because in the future they wouldn't have kettles and they'd only have access to the worst possible tea. Sorry if anyone from Lipton is watching this, but God, sort your tea bags out, mate. Making us look bad. And then, Hugh is saying half the voltage in the US is double the lethal current you are using. It's 26 amps, not 13 amps for a kettle full. There you go. So their electricity is not only rubbish, it's also more deadly. Double deadly. Anyway, talking about being rubbish and deadly, it turns out that the Tories have increased our national debt by, according to Carol Vorderman, by £380 million a day for the last 5,000 days. So yesterday marked the 5,000th day of us living under the yoke of the Tory. The Tory scum. 1.9 trillion they've added to our national debt in that time, which is just eye-watering, an absolutely eye-watering sum. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the VIP lane, because Cal Vorman's also been doing some stuff with the Good Law Project, Julian Mann, and they've identified a Tory councillor who got £270 million to buy PPE through the VIP lane.
Was the one who bought a house?
I don't know, but £183 million worth of that PPE was found to be unfit for the NHS. And he wound up his business last summer.
Yeah. I'm guessing this business was only registered in May 2020.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not a long-running business that had a history of bringing in.
There's an awful lot of these
PPE
companies that were given these contracts, the VIP lane, didn't exist before May 2020, which is coincidentally when the VIP lane was set up.
Now, what I want to ask is, because of the emergency legislation that came in, I think in March 2020, about procurement, does this mean that no one is ever going to be taken to court over this, or do you think
So, I mean, obviously, I'm not a legal expert. What I would say is that the High Court have ruled the VIP lane unlawful. So it's not like everything was above board with it. So whatever the Conservatives did that made them think it was all, and this is the important thing to remember when they're sort of moaning about judges, is MPs make the laws, sure, but they don't always know what they mean. So it takes a legal expert, a senior judge, to say, yeah, you might have thought you were legislating for this, but actually means something very different, you idiot. This is why maybe you should have let the House of Lords scrutinise it for a little bit longer. So whatever the Conservatives may have done in 2020 to sort themselves out, the fact that the High Court declared the high priority lane, as it's officially called, unlawful, suggests to me that actually no. And the other thing is, it really, from my point of view, it doesn't matter too much. If a contract says you have to deliver these goods or services, at the very least, if you do, we can't obviously take anyone to court just because they charged us too much, because our government gave them that money, right? And the public invested in them the power to pay whatever they wanted. But if anyone didn't deliver it, they are absolutely in the frame for returning the money. And if, so there is that. It's just that with Mann and Barrowman, the news just keeps coming out. Dan Needle revealed some more stuff on them. It turns out with those two that basically it sounds to me like, if he's right, none of their wealth was legally acquired. It's like the whole house of cards could come down with them. It could actually turn out that none of their business interests are legitimate.
Yeah,
None
I
of them.
thought this because there's a lot of controversy about Michelle Mone. Even her first job, she lied on her CV to get it. Then she claimed that her bra was used by Julia Roberts in the movie Erin Brockovich, and it
Right.
wasn't. And they had to have a cease and desist letter
Right.
off the production company of the film saying, "Will you stop saying that she used a bra of yours?" They didn't. And like it just looks like she's an absolute con artist
But
from the
but
beginning to
but
end.
Doug Barrowman as well. Apparently, I need to read more into it, but it looks like, or the suggestion is, that a lot of his original business interests involved an awful lot of fraud of both customers and HMRC. You know, you could end up with a situation if justice is
Wow.
properly going to follow its course. Not only do they find themselves with prison time, but when they come out of prison, they won't have a pot to piss in because all of their wealth is the proceeds of crime. Maybe, allegedly.
Well, allegedly, but it all goes through the Isle of Man, and that's a way that they can get
But
around
but an
things like
awful lot of
this.
their so what they find is an awful lot of their business interest, they've not been declaring interest, and that's illegal. You have to say for all businesses and business assets who has the controlling interest.
Yeah,
In an awful lot of these cases, it appears to have been Doug Barrowman, and he hasn't declared it. That is illegal. Because you have to know, it has to be possible to look up who has the controlling interest in a party. Apart from anything else, governments are giving, public contracts
mm,
to these people. We have to be able to, most of the public it'll never get reported on. That's the media's fault. But it has to be at least possible to know if there's a conflict of interest there, to see, oh, these people gave Jeremy Hunt £20,000 donation while he was health secretary and received a £2 million public contract from the Department for Health and Social Care. We have to know things like that. We have to be able to see them in order to judge whether they're spending our money wisely.
yeah,
And so if you obscure who has the controlling interest in a company, you are preventing that public scrutiny.
yeah.
So it is very illegal.
It is, and yeah, the hopefully we're going to be seeing some actual criminal convictions coming down, not just for Barrowman, but for these other people who are involved in this. Because this is, I made this point this morning. So, for instance, this Tory councillor, we don't know his name yet or her name. That they're not just on the hook for 270 million.
Mm.
That's how much they were given,
Yeah.
right? 276 million, actually,
Yeah.
right? That's how much they were given by the government. But also, the government would have had to spend an extra 183 million making up for the PPE
Yeah.
that they
Didn't deliver.
didn't deliver. They would have had to get that PPE. They needed it. So there you have 400. That one person has cost the taxpayer 459 million.
To
We
say
live in
nothing of the lies, because the PPE took longer to arrive, there are people now with long COVID, there are people now who have died as a result of the fact that people on the front line didn't have PPE.
yeah. So people have died. They've got blood on their hands. Absolutely. And that's just, I mean, it's just wrong on so many levels, really. That they've got away with it, and I've been watching the Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, and it's absolutely enraging that these people were prosecuted for menial sums of money going missing because of a dodgy computer program they were
The,
using, and
the
these people
stuff
are
that's
robbing
coming out today on
millions.
that, the stuff that's coming out today on that is there now needs to be a public inquiry into this. It could be on other organizations. Fujitsu are now saying the information that they had given to the post office deleted from submissions to court.
Whoa,
So,
whoa,
so the stuff that is coming out from this sort of parliamentary inquiry, there needs to be there needs to be, I think, two things to be understood from the point of view of politicians here, whom I have not so far blamed for this, because as far as I'm concerned, these are people primarily at the post office responsible.
yeah,
But what needs to be understood for politicians, if it isn't to become a political issue, is first of all, this could happen again quite easily. You have to make it. It's the sort of thing where there was probably a high chance. They knew there was a high chance they would get caught.
yeah,
So therefore, you have to say, if you get caught, you're actually going to prison. There has to be proper prosecutions here. The politicians cannot cover for them. They actually must make sure they face the full force of law. And if it turns out they didn't do anything criminal, fine, but they must be investigated.
So Paula Venables could end up in jail.
Should must if I were the Secretary of State for Business, I would be saying there must absolutely be an investigation. I would be, making it clear to the National Crime Agency that I expect a full investigation here. If you don't have evidence for a criminal prosecution, okay, I'm not saying make up prosecutions, but there must be a full investigation because we have to send a message. This is so important. But the second thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a public inquiry to examine the circumstances behind all this, and to come up with recommendations that, first of all, would make it much less likely to happen in the future, beyond just a big stick to beat them with if they're found out.
Yeah.
But also how we can actually investigate whether or not this is currently happening with any other organizations. Because if it can happen with one organization, why on earth couldn't it happen with another?
Do you know what I think would help, Anton, that's been mooted? Cracking down on NDAs, non-disclosure agreements.
Yes.
Because if you're told that you're the only person in this company that this thing has happened to, and then you signed an NDA, you can't actually hook up with someone else, find out someone else it's happened to. And companies abuse these non-disclosure agreements every single day, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
There's lots of reasons why NDA should not actually exist. Lots of reasons, because ultimately they are usually they're used, to stop employees effectively whistleblowing. It's like we'll pay you off. Because we'll give you what you would have got going through a tribunal, only you don't have two years of heartache.
Yeah.
But you have to promise not to tell it, and it then allows them to carry on abusing other workers.
Yeah.
So just so there's lots. Yeah, NDA should not be lawful for lots of reasons.
Absolutely not. And it does wind me up that in America they have a rule where if you're a whistleblower and there's a big a case that's brought, a class action lawsuit is brought against the company that you have blown the whistle on. As a result of you blowing the whistle, you get a cut of whatever that company is fined, whatever the compensation payout is, you get a cut of it. In this country, you get nothing for whistleblowing. If you work for a big pharmaceutical company, or you work for a big food company, or whatever company you work for, and you disclose to the press or to the police what's going on, you lose your job, you never work in that sector again, and you probably lose your house.
Yeah,
that's what we need. We need a new law, a whistleblowers, charter that says if you blow the whistle on your water company for pouring shit into our rivers, you're going to get compensated, and encourage people to blow the whistle instead of discourage them. Decourage? It's not a word, Graham.
Yes.
But yeah, do you want to see some more? Do you want to see some more polling? Do you want to see another poll?
Go on then.
Got a poll here. This is the FT tracker. It's a poll of polls, so it's not just.
I think this one looks like the Sky one. There's two main ones. There's the Politico one and the Sky one.
Okay,
I don't know that the F2 do their own.
This is in the FT.
Yeah, so, have they just? It looks like the Sky one. Have they got it from Sky? I don't know. It looks like the same values anyway on Skies.
Yeah, but this is a poll of polls, so it's not just a big one-off where you go, oh my God, we're 30 points ahead all of a sudden. But that is pretty consistent, showing that Labour are 20 points ahead
at the moment. And that's what most polls have shown, that actually over the last month, the polls have widened. So, Rishi Sunak made his big pitch at the start of the year, as did Keir Starmer, but Rishi Sunak made his big pitch. Right, election year, Isaac Levido's installed in CCHQ, blah, 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 blah. And the start of it is absolutely disastrous for them. But it's going to be, as I say, the news today is that retail figures are massively down, unless people drank themselves, because booze, alcohol figures wouldn't be included in that. So unless people spent all their money on booze last month, and some people spent a fair amount of it at Christmas, then, you look at this and you go, okay, so the situation was, in October, we knew that there was a big hit to growth, to GDP.
Yeah.
In November, it rallied, it came back. So it's sort of like October and November basically cancelled each other out. So it's all down to December. If December showed negative growth, we're in technical recession. And the retail figure's massively down. And again, I could have told you that because I could see my rates dropped like a stone in December compared to November. And, you know, so yeah, un, unless something compensated for it, unless people were just not spending in the retail sector, were spending on something else,
Hmm.
then, you know, Rishi Sunak is going to find himself in about a month's time with recession all over the front pages of the newspapers.
They're done for. There's nothing to vote for them.
But the thing that got me as well is they keep saying things like, oh, you know, we expect the economy to improve over the next year. And I keep thinking, I read, you know, what independent economists say in the likes of the Financial Times or on Bloomberg and The Economist, and they're not saying that.
Yeah.
They're saying things are going to get worse. And they have this fixation on inflation. And admittedly, they've managed to get a lot of the public focused on inflation. But ultimately, like if you talk about the economy to people, they don't think of GDP, they don't think of graphs, they think of the pound in their pocket.
Yeah.
What's their living standard like? And you know, that crash in the retail figures showed us that people did not feel that they could have the same sort of Christmas they used to, for example.
Yeah.
You know, because they were able to spend as much. So, you know, the 2024 is going to be absolute bastard of a year for the Tories. They should have gone to the polls before now. They should have gone they should have gone last spring, really. But they didn't.
Well,
And then if they weren't going to do that, it should have gone last autumn. Basically, and they've known this. CCHQ have known this. They knew that the longer they left it after 2022, because they actually expected to go to the polls in 2022. That's what they were thinking. In 2021, they were getting their vaccine bounce. They were thinking to themselves, we're going to go for an election next year. Because after 2022, they knew that everything, you know, none of this, this unexpected global events. There have been some unexpected global events, but they knew anyway without that everything was going to shit. So they knew that every half year they left the election, it was going to be worse for them. And then, of course, Labour, well, before then, long before then.
Well, Labour overtook
a year before then.
Yeah,
Labour gained the lead, and they haven't relinquished it since. Yeah, obviously you can't go to the polls in 2022 if Labour have got a lead. That'd be madness. So they just waited. They'll wait and wait and wait, and it's 2 years later, and Labour have had that lead for over 2 years, and that's that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the audacity of the Tory, the sheer brass neck of the Tory party, saying that the Lords must not frustrate the will of the people. Talk about a party with like 20%.
That was hilarious because I actually said in my video after that press conference, the one I did after that press conference, I said, I would expect that the House of Lords to give him a two-fingered salute, and they did do, because what they did yesterday, they voted. So Sunak, right, he's saying he wants it to pass through the House of Lords easy as you like. You know, he wants it to pass through the House of Lords like a curry through your intestines, and he wants the planes to be setting off by spring. So the House of Lords have basically voted to scrutinise it for 2 months. So they basically said, oh, you want it done before spring? Yeah, we're not even going to really properly talk about it before spring. We're just going to spend 2 months reading it.
Yeah.
So that's what they've basically said. They're going to spend 2 months. The vote, and this is very unusual, by the way. They don't normally vote to set a minimum amount of time to scrutinise it. But that's what they've done. And that is telling Rishi Sunak to do one. I don't think they would have done that if he hadn't have tried to come clever with them. I think they've done that to basically go. But there we go. Yeah. So it is, and we also know they're going to amend the hell out of it. They're going to send it back with they're going to send it back with red pen all over it.
Yeah. In the chat, BUFU Mike is saying that GDP is not a very good way of having a look. And it's not.
But this is why actually the Conservatives, one of the reasons why the Conservatives should focus on the economy and not asylum is, first of all, Reform UK really wouldn't know what to do with that. Secondly, it's so easy to fiddle economic. You know, you can make economic stats do whatever you like. I mean, we've got graphs that the Treasury have been pointing out showing, our growth's been way higher than other G7 nations the last few years. Like, no, it hasn't. You've just used a misleading measure that's allowed you to say that, but it hasn't. our
It's that
economy
thing of
has not.
shooting a barn door and then drawing a bullseye around your
Yeah.
bullet hole and going, I'm a perfect shot. But
But, you
someone
know,
mentions
it's
in the chat about KFC. So let's talk about KFC for a moment. Do you know how much a wrap is now at KFC?
no,
A wrap, just a wrap
no.
with Zinger chicken. £5.49
Yeah. I
for
mean,
a
my
wrap.
partner's always, whenever she's doing the shopping, it's like, how much? And I just keep saying to her, Tory inflation.
Yeah.
Tory
Because they used to
inflation.
do the wrap of the day, so they got everyone excited and addicted to them because they were only
Right.
£2, which is about right. And now they are nearly 3 times more than that.
But, you
And
know,
that's not for a meal. That's no fries, no sugar drink. That
their
is
fries are
just
crap anyway.
they are really crap, which is sad. They did potato wedges for a bit, which I thought were really good, but then they stopped. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of fast food, to be honest with you. Also, but sometimes I'm in a hurry and I just need some goddamn food. Corporate fast food is a big no-no for me, says Hugh in the chat. Got to 100% wheat gluten now. Got my local fish and chip shop to totally separate chip frying from battered fish to avoid cross-contamination because that's bad. Well, yeah. Well, there was a big scandal about 20 years ago. It was a long time ago now, where it turned out that McDonald's have been frying their fries in pig fat,
Yeah.
which isn't great if you're trying to keep kosher or halal.
No. Or indeed, or a vegetarian. Like, you
Yeah.
should be able to have what would sound like a vegetarian option at McDonald's.
Yeah, no, we just
What is the point of doing fries if you're? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, chips cooked in like duck fat or beef dripping are absolutely marvelous. But if you're gonna, have something like that selling to customers, it's like, if it doesn't need to be non-vegetarian, why would you do that?
Yeah, but it is.
There was a thing round here. There was a cafe round here. Apparently, there was a little mini scandal in our tiny little market town, where there was like this local cafe, and its beans on toast apparently weren't vegan, but they were specifically advertised as vegan.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, you have to go to effort, like, you have to like put butter on the toast or something. You have to go to effort to make beans on toast not vegan. And it's like, why would you advertise it as that and then go to the effort of making it? It's like you're trying to screw them over deliberately.
Yeah, I mean, I've when I was back in university, my partner was vegetarian, and we travelled around Spain, and just trying to get vegetarian food in Spain was an absolute bloody nightmare because they just didn't understand the concept. So you'd get an omelette thinking, now that'll be vegetarian, and I'll just put ham in it. They'll put ham in the salad. And when you're saying like no carne, they're just like, oh, poco carne. It's like, no, you don't want any meat. That's the whole point. But yeah, it's a lot better now. It's a lot better now traveling. But if you are a vegetarian and you want to travel and eat decent food, India, top tip.
Well, I mean, that's fairly understandable.
Well, yeah, because Hindus tend not to eat meat. So a chicken vindaloo is very much a British invention. They don't have them in India. That'd be a bit weird. If you do get a chicken curry in India, generally speaking, it'll come with bones in it. So you kind of like picking bones out the food. Which isn't fun. Anyway.
Well, if you have like a proper biryani in India, they just throw the whole animals in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Throw it all in. It's all gone.
It's all good.
What's this goat's head doing in my biryani?
Yeah. But yeah, Nick and Dick was asking how much McDonald's is these days for a meal deal. I mean, it varies depending on where you are, but you'd be lucky if you were feeding a family of 4. No way you could get it for less than 20 quid now. Not like you used to. I mean, it used to be dirt cheap, and now it's just dirt.
Yeah, and when you consider like people on low incomes, like they've. You look at the situation at the moment, you just think, I don't know how people cope. And ultimately, people aren't coping.
Well, that's why the height of 5-year-olds has
gone. Yeah.
The average height of 5-year-olds has plummeted in this country.
That's child malnutrition. I mean, that's a real key marker.
Yeah. And that's under the Tories. There's been no one else in charge in the last 5 years, mate.
Yeah.
Just the Tories. And they're doing a number on literally every part of society. And this is where I go back to the question of like, what is there left to vote for the Tory party now?
If you were really a conservative that was really critically thinking, unless you happened to have financial circumstances which benefited which a small number will, and you just didn't care about the rest. Honestly, I really don't think there is anything. I think it was Brendan Smith being asked. He asked, well, was it Ian Dale or something on LBC? And he was asked, name me one thing that's better now than in 2010. Just name me one thing. And he couldn't. But he kept trying to talk about COVID. Now, where I think Dale went wrong is he should have said, okay, name me one thing that was better in 2019 then. Because I'll bet there was nothing better in 2019 either.
Yeah.
So you could easily, if they try and come this COVID crap, I would say, okay, so name me one thing that was better in 2019 then.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
But they could say, oh, we were part of the EU then, and that was a bad thing.
Yeah, but that wasn't better than in 2010. That's the same as in 2010. In 2010, we're in the single market because of unions, as we were in 2019. If you were to ask them what was better, give me a metric that was better, that looked better in 2019 than 2010, they still wouldn't be able to answer you that. And they can't use COVID without giving COVID in 2019. So, that trying to hide behind COVID, whereas after the banking crash, when Labour lost in 2010 because of it, things were still better than in 1997.
Oh yeah, a lot better.
Yes.
A lot better. They did get the waiting lists down.
Yeah.
They did invest in education. There was so much good stuff that Labour did. Sure Start schemes, which people talk about to this day.
Well, they will have to because very soon the Deputy Prime Minister will be someone who benefited.
Yeah, exactly. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. Yes, get it. People are saying in the chat about McDonald's, about the costs. I think they're coming to about £6 or £7 for a meal now. Took 2 kids to McDonald's a week ago. 3 regular meals plus a box of nuggets to share, £27. See Dan Smith saying, I live in Lincolnshire. And what has to happen for the politically ignorant electorate to stop voting against their best interests? I just don't know.
No, ultimately,
that's why I'm talking about people who are actually invested in politics and do read.
This is the problem with the media. The media is not fit for purpose. But yeah, if you were actually aware, you were critically thinking, you weren't like blighted by ideology, that you were prepared to look at evidence and understand it. Honestly, there is nothing to vote for the Conservatives, even if you were right wing. If you think about if you think about the intent, not the mechanisms, but the intended outcomes of being right wing or left wing, there's no, what is the expected outcome of being right wing? It's that you should be free to gain prosperity with hard work and application, all the rest of it, all the stuff that is advertised as being the benefits of the right wing. You don't get that. Because you've got businesses going under through no fault of their own. Because the Conservatives are restricting market conditions necessary for a business to flourish. So there is no benefit at all, unless you are, I was going to say unless you are xenophobic or racist and wanted this sort of performative cruelty, but the Conservatives aren't even doing that.
They're not even doing that, right? That's what I mean. Even if you are a massive racist and you just want people to suffer, because you're a sadist, they're not delivering on that either. They're not delivering anything. Like Santa with a broken sledge. But like the people are saying in the chat about Sure Start, the MPs that I've spoken to over the last few years, the Tory Labour MPs that I've spoken to, have all mentioned Sure Start as a thing that they're proud of Labour setting up. Angela Rayner mentions it a lot. I can see them bringing that back. I can absolutely see them bringing that back.
There's lots of things they should bring back. I mean, other things that we talked about is like EMA for college students. That was incredibly powerful. It massively boosted attendance.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael was saying in the chat about Jess Phillips' speech about Rwanda. It was awesome. It was proper chills when she was giving that speech. She talked about how much they spend on children in this country who have been abused, versus how much they are spending on sending no one to Rwanda. And the disparity there. Even if they do send someone to Rwanda, it's going to cost like £200,000 per person.
Yeah, I think originally the last year they were quoting a figure of £169,000 per person. It's basically going up.
Yeah, and then Michael said £42 for children who have been abused.
Yeah.
And again, what is there to vote for with the Tories?
Yeah.
Unless maybe if you're
Yeah.
part of the Rwandan government and you're like, yeah, they're giving us loads of money.
But even they're getting sick of it. Like people pointed out today, even they're offering to give us 200 million quid back just to shut up,
just to shut
just
up,
to go away.
Which is remarkable because that is a good chunk of their GDP. That's like
huge.
3.5% of their entire GDP. Their GDP is only 11 billion a year. It's a small country. It's not very rich. I mean, yeah, I'm all for helping out countries in Africa, mate. So, this is the way we have to do it. Just seem a bit needlessly performative and just give them the money.
There was a quick question there, sorry, from Paul. I think he's asked it a couple of times. Has Phil's LBC mentioned given Labour Social followers bounce as well? I haven't checked. I suspect not because that wasn't mentioned.
No, it wasn't mentioned.
I got a little bounce. I got a small bounce in subscribers. Actually, quite a big bounce. But yeah.
It was quite funny because we were in a WhatsApp group together and everyone in the WhatsApp group was, Phil, you're on the radio. You're on the radio, mate. Everyone was jumping in to say. But that was nice. And also Stop the Tories, .vote, got a shout out as well.
Well, they then tweeted that clip out as well.
Yeah.
With the Stop the Tories mentioned in it.
Excellent. Were you mentioned in that as well?
No, I think they clipped me off. Like I think to be fair, to be fair, I can understand why. Because if you listen to the clip, James O'Brien at the end of it, after the endorsement, says is not libelous or potty mouthed. So they can be understandably worried about effectively endorsing. Because if they then put it out in a clip, then they're endorsing it without actually knowing who I am.
Yeah.
So that's fair enough.
Oh, so LBC put the clip out?
Yes. Oh, they tweeted out the clip that stopped at it had the Stop the Tories vote in it.
Okay.
But not after it.
Because Carol Vorderman's all over that. So now that she's a regular on LBC. But she is doing so much good work at the moment. Carol Vorderman. She is absolutely kicking ass when it comes to holding the Tories to account. Do you know what? 10 years ago, if you had told me that Carol Vorderman off Countdown would be one of the most important people in British politics, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. If you say so, mate. But yeah, for holding the Tories to account. But don't do that saying, have you been missold PPE? That is going to be the question that's going to send, hopefully, a lot of Tories and their backers to jail. What they've done.
Doug Barrowman's looking increasingly in the frame at the very least, but what I don't want is just a token that lets everyone else off.
No.
Because that doesn't stop people. It doesn't act as. I mean, Rishi Sunak says he believes in the deterrent, doesn't he? Yeah. So that doesn't act as a deterrent. It just basically says, don't be the worst one. They'll send the worst one to jail if it all goes tits up. Don't be the worst offender.
Well, do you know what, though? It'll still be an improvement on the credit crunch when literally nobody went to jail.
That's right. Someone lost their knighthood. And now, for the post office scandal, what's happening? Someone's losing their CBE.
Yeah.
I mean, that cannot be. That cannot be how we deal with something like this.
Got to give your gong back. Sleepless nights that must cause. I love that gong that I got for no reason.
But they shouldn't have had it anyway. I mean, so it's like, you're losing something you never should have had in the first place, but you're keeping your liberty and your millions.
Yeah. Anyway, how effective are we via social media? Says number 3. What I think thank you very much for the super chat there, Richard. What I'll say to that is, even though we don't get like millions of people watching our content, we help empower people who do watch it when they're having conversations with people about what the Tories are getting up to. And getting this information out there. And I think that has a knock-on effect. So I do think it is quite powerful. I don't want to get ideas above my station, but especially for Phil. But how many have you got now? 180? Are you up to 180,000 subscribers yet?
183 in a bit.
Wow. There you go. That's not bad for a niche left-wing political channel in the UK.
No. In fact, it may well be the highest of solo efforts. So I think there are larger channels, but they tend to be a team.
Yeah. What's Navarra Media on at the moment?
I have to look up now. I have got an easy way to check all of these things, but I'll have to put it up. So I'll just look it up manually now.
Okay, while Phil does that, I'm going to call out some of the. I'm going to say out some of the
Oh
chats.
yeah, they're quite big. They're on 649,000.
Oh,
But
bloody hell.
that is a team, and they do have MPs who regularly go on and
Yeah.
talk to them and things.
Do you, and who else have we got? We got Max is doing quite well. He's on
A bit,
160,000.
Politics Joe does well, but that's again a team.
How many Politics Joe got?
Yeah. They've got 434,000. So these are proper big ones, huge ones. But there is a team of people. It's not like a person in their shed.
That's pretty cool. Anyway, right. Well, goals. Hashtag life goals. Steve's Retro Loft is saying Private Eye constantly reporting about the Freeport and Teesside issues. We just need an ITV miniseries about it before anyone does anything. I agree with that. Yeah, that's gonna be a big thing for the Tories, isn't it?
I mean, they're just basically buggered. My second video today is just basically, do they? I'm starting to see now political polling analysts ask the question. So I'm going to cover this in my second video today. Of, do the Tories actually realise how screwed they are? Because they seem not. It's like the problem is a lot of people just skim, surface read polls. They look at the headline results, but that doesn't really tell you anything. Because then inevitably what people say, oh yeah, but Labour had a lead in 2015 and Labour had a lead in 1992. We won it. And it's like, yeah, but in 1992 and in 2015, Labour never led on the key issues of the day. They never led on the head-to-head.
Yeah.
And they did not lead on the key issues. And that's what's different now. In fact, even in 1997, the Tories still led on the economy. Now, being fair, the economy had recovered. So that people were comparing the state of the economy with like a Tory economy still.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, the Conservatives led Labour on the economy in 1997, but Labour led on pretty much everything else. And they won the election, including the head-to-head. Labour in 92 and in 2015 never led on the economy, and they never led on the head-to-head. Ed Miliband was never more popular than David Cameron, and Neil Kinnock was not more popular than John Major. And so what happens, and what people need to understand is, these swing voters who will say, oh, I'm going to vote this, or mostly actually it's caused by, remember, what can make your poll lead disappear as an opposition? You don't have to lose voters. It doesn't have to be voters going, oh, I'm going to vote Labour. Oh, no, I'm going to vote Tory after all. It doesn't have to be a lot of that. It can just be a load of don't knows who suddenly decide they're now going to vote Conservative. Because once the general election campaign starts and people ask you who you're going to vote for, it's like it's fairly abstract at most times. But during the election campaign, all of a sudden they know their vote matters because they're going to make a choice that actually has an impact. And their brain changes. So, that's why you have to look under the bonnet. You have to look at who's leading on the individual nuts and bolts, not just the general vote. The voting intention is just something they've just said on the spot. They haven't necessarily thought about it. Yeah. But when people are going to make their vote, they are thinking about it and they're basing it on something. And what that something can be is different for different people. But for most people at the moment, when the economy is struggling, it's the economy.
It's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy, stupid. It's almost always the economy. That's always the top issue. And Labour are leading on everything. The only thing the Tories ever sometimes slightly nudge ahead on is something like Ukraine or defence or anything to do with defence, really. Ukraine or the Middle East, something like that. And that's really because when people say, oh, there's no difference between Labour and the Conservatives, and it's like there's massive difference. But on that, there actually isn't.
Yeah.
So those are the issues where actually Labour are not even trying to be different. And therefore, people just give the nod to the incumbent.
Yeah.
But that's it. And that's not deciding the election. Like the thing that's deciding the election is healthcare and Labour are leading, the economy, Labour are leading, even immigration and asylum, Labour are leading. The head-to-head, people say, oh, Starmer's not that popular. No, he's a hell of a lot more popular than Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
So, that's why this poll lead is no longer soft. When it was described as soft in the past, it was because the Tories were still leading on a number of individual policy areas. Now they're not. They're behind on all of them. They're behind with most of the key demographics. And even the demographics they're still ahead on, that lead has been massively cut back. That is why, someone actually looking at the polling, actually analysing the polling properly, would no longer say that Labour's lead is soft, because it's not.
It's not. And okay. Well, on that positive note, we're going to have to leave it there because we've got a little bit over time, but that's all right. We were late getting started. So thank you very much, Phil, for that. Thank you very much for everyone in the chat. Can you remember to like before you leave? Because it helps the algorithm. Feed the algorithm. I will be back at 7:30 tonight on A. Thompson's show, A. Thompson and Other Disappointments. I'm going to be a disappointment. If you want to find Aid's channel, just go to the Labour Social channel on here, and he's in the list of our friends. So check him out because he makes very, very good videos. And I'll be back again at 9 o'clock on this channel to do the Labour Social. So I'll be cracking open a couple of beers and just having a yak about the state of the world. We'll talk a little bit about international politics as well. Phil, will you be joining us for that, or you got better things to do this
I don't
evening?
know. I'm not sure yet. Because
Nobody ever knows.
I've got to be out early tomorrow, so it may be a combination of too late, and I've got to make sure my first Saturday video is definitely done.
Yeah.
Because I'm off out.
Fair enough. All right, thanks to number 3 in the chat there. I will write to my Labour MP asking her to support your channel. Thank you very much, number 3. That's very kind of you. Yes, hopefully we'll still see Phil later, maybe for a little bit, but possibly not. But I'll definitely be there. So if you'll join us for that, that would be wonderful. And until then, I'll say thanks for the super chats, thanks for the chat. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.